In this chapter, we're going to be talking about Nurbs. What are Nurbs? Well, we'll get into that into a second, but first I want to introduce curve tools and how we can use them inside of Maya. Curve tools will help us make our Nurbs more attractive and give us more control over them. So I'd like to introduce those concepts first. Always remember that this outline will be available to you, and you'll be able to refer back to it at any time during your assignment, and all of these will have hyperlinks to them to the point in the video in which they discuss. All right, so let's just get this off the screen and let's get started on talking about curves. All right, so how do we make curves inside of Maya? Well, we go to Create, we go to Curve Tools, and we have two main curve tools that we're going to be talking about in this video. You can explore these other four at your leisure, but we really need to talk about these two at the beginning. So we have an CV curve tool and an EP curve tool. So what's the difference between the two? Well, to really discuss the difference between the two, we're going to have to start making curves and discussing the components. But first, why don't I make an example, draw out an example of each. First, whenever I make a curve, I don't like doing it in my perspective view, because as I'm placing points down that define the curve, I don't really have much control over where in space they lie. So I like to go to a front or side or top view. Basically, a 2D view will be the best use for us right now. So why don't we create a CV curve tool real quickly, or use the CV curve tool to create a curve. I start by selecting a point on the grid or anywhere on the grid. I'll make one point, that's where our curve will start. And then I'm basically just drawing different points on the grid here. All right, so a few things we can notice already. We have a blue line that represents the actual curve that we're drawing, and we have this orange line that's kind of defining an angular shape of it. So basically what we're doing is we're creating a curve based on control vertices right now. And you can see these control vertices in orange connected by these orange lines. So if we press enter, we'll complete my curve. So it's kind of like we're drawing a rigid outline of our curve to actually create a curve. Let's see what the EP curve tool does for us. So I'll select EP curve, and I'll come over here. I select my first point. It looks about the same so far. My next point. As you can see, I'm actually defining the actual points of my curve right now. So no weird orange box around it. I'm defining the edit points of my curve exactly. So I'll press enter. So we have our two curves drawn right now. So what are we going to do next? Well, let's talk about the components of a curve real quickly. All right. So much like a polygon, if we right click a curve that is near our cursor, we have this radial menu and a few things pop up. So let's hit them all in order starting from the bottom. So an edit point are actually points on my curve that lie exactly on my curve. And as you can see, I can move these around just like a vertice or a face or an edge. And it's actually affecting the shape of my curve. All right. If I go to control vertex, remember that orange line that we had? These control vertices are kind of like a defining outline of our curve here. It's just another way in which we can define our curve. If I go to curve point, I can actually click on my curve and you can see this red dot following my cursor. And if I let go, we've actually defined a exact point on my curve. I can even hold shift. As I'm holding shift, I can make another curve point. And we can, by holding down shift, we can make several different selections along our curve using curve point here. One more thing I want to show is the hole. So the hole is that orange line that showed up when we were creating our first curve. It's connected by control vertices. So if I go to control vertex, you can see now that my purple points here define my hole. So those are the four components of a curve. And no matter which tool you use, you're going to have the same tools available to us. Even though we created this curve using edit points, the EP curve tool, EP standing for edit point, CV standing for control vertex. All curves are going to have the same components no matter what tool you use. So really it's a matter of preference. You might like edit points because it allows you to put down the curve points exactly where you want the curve. It's just a matter of preference. All right. So we have this open curve right now. Now we need to figure out a way to close it. All right. So why don't we go, well, how do we close it? I mean, maybe if we started with another curve, I'll do an EP curve, and I'm just drawing my curve. Maybe if I get right on that point, it'll automatically close for us. I mean, that looks pretty closed, except that it's not. So we have to use a certain tool to close our curves for us. So I'm going to select my curve again and go to Curves and go to Open and Close, and it will close my curve based on some of these points that we already have laid down. So that's a quick and easy way to close our curves. Pretty important for certain tools or shapes that you want to make. So what happens if you want to, say, add some more points to your curve because you're not getting exactly the shape that you want? What if I wanted to make like a Pac-Man shape? I mean, that's the worst Pac-Man looking figure ever. So what we'll do, there's a few ways in which we can add points to our curve. The first way I'm going to show you is the Add Points tool. And to do that, I have to open up my curve again. So I can go to Open and Close. And Maya remembers exactly where your seam was that closed the curve. So with my curve now open again, I can go to the Add Points tool. And it literally just lets you continue your curve however you want. Now if I press Enter, now I have these extra control vertices and these extra edit points right here. All right. Notice how it made control vertices and edit points. Now with some of these extra points to work with, I can come in and start defining my curve a little bit more. And you'll notice, depending on how close these edit points are to one another, dictates how rigid our curve is. All right. So I want to go ahead and get this in a better position, like so. And that's a nice little discrepancy. Edit points. So I was having trouble getting this shape at the bottom closed exactly like I wanted to. So if I went to control vertices, you can see I have an extra control vertice right here. That wasn't with my edit points. So if you're not getting the exact kind of points to control the shape of your curve, try switching between control vertex and edit points. All right. And you'll notice again, like I was saying, the closer you get your curve, the better. All right. So why don't we go ahead and close my curve again. There we go. And I have this weird shape. I know. So I still need to get this Pac-Man mouth looking better. And this shape, I can define these circles a little bit better. And in fact, I think I have too many points down here, so I'm just going to delete that one. There we go. Maybe delete that one and that one. And I'm kind of getting that circular shape back that I want. But I need to have a more rigid shape right here. There's just not enough points to really define that really angular mouth of, say, a Pac-Man shape. So what I'll do is I'll select my shape or my curve, hold down right click, go to curve points, and I'm going to select the range in which I want to add my more points to. So I'll select here at the top of the mouth and here at the bottom of the mouth. So I'll be able to add points in between these two curve points that I have selected. So I'll go to curve and insert knot. So I'm going to open up the little box here, and we can dictate how many points we want to increase it by. And now we have a bunch more vertex and control points to work with right here. And this is a really important concept here. I'm going to take these control points or control vertices and get them real close to one another, like so. So with my points closer together, I can start defining more angular pieces of my curve, like so. And there we go. I'm able to now really hone in on the exact shape that I want. And for all intents and purposes, I got a Pac-Man. My curve is open again. I must have deleted the start point of my curve when I was deleting those control vertices. So I just go to curves and open and close it again. There we go. Readjust my shape exactly the way I want it. And there we go. That's how we can add more points to our curve to really define our shape a little bit more. All right, so there's another tool we can use to add more points. We can actually rebuild my curve. So I'll go to Curves, Rebuild, and open up the extra options box. We have a lot of parameters here we can use for just the purposes of adding more points here. You can actually dictate how many spans, which directly relates to how many control vertices you have within your curve. So I can make this thing have 36, and it'll just completely remake my curve. And now I have all this extra shape. So yeah, you got to be careful sometimes. When I say rebuild, I mean it'll completely just rebuild the shape of your curve depending on how it was looking before. So that's something you got to look out for. Sometimes you just need to put more points in really quick. You don't care too much about the shape. Well, you can just increase the number of spans and hit apply, and you'll just get roughly your same shape, but you'll have a lot more control vertices here. All right, so that's curves in a nutshell. I won't dwell on them too much. Those few tools that I introduced will be more than enough to allow us to make whatever kind of shape we want. So now we need to talk about what Nurbs actually are. Let's get into the Nurbs now that we've learned about the curve tools. So I'm just going to go to Create and go to Nurbs Primitives, and I'm just going to make a Nurb sphere. All right, let's go into perspective view. So this Nurb sphere, it's almost like we're in sub D mode with our polygonal modeling, except this is not made out of polygons. And I'll go ahead and make a polygonal sphere as well. And you can tell something right now. They roughly look the same without selecting them, but by selecting both, we see that we don't need near as many edges on our Nurb sphere to define the shape of a nice, organic, non-rigid sphere. All right, so that's what Nurbs are in a nutshell. They just allow us to have more organic surfaces and shapes. You might be asking what Nurbs stands for, or where they get the name Nurbs. Well, NURB stands for Non-Uniform Rational B-Splines. Yeah, that's a mouthful, isn't it? Basically, these B-splines are made out of all these different curves. We call them isoparms on Nurbs. We'll get into that when we talk about components in a second. And basically, it just uses an algorithm to define curvature rather than using hard physical polygons to define our shapes here. All right. So it's kind of like the difference between raster graphics, where that use pixels to make shapes in Photoshop, versus vector graphics that uses algorithms of vectors to create shapes instead of something like InDesign or Photoshop as well. So basically, Nurbs are the algorithms of modeling, and they allow us to create these nice organic shapes by basically using math. All right, so let's talk about the components of a Nurb next. All right, I'm going to right click on it and let's go over what these components are. And they have kind of similarities between polygons. So if I hold down right click and go to isoparm, isoparms are the actual edges of my Nurbs. But there's a few differences here. If I select an isoparm, I can't move, rotate it, or scale it. It's pretty much locked down right where it is. So you can't really model or move edges like you could in a polygon. In the same way, a surface point, well, actually, let's talk about surface patch. That's what I really wanted. So if we select the surface patch, it's almost like the face of our Nurb, right? But again, I can't directly edit that using our traditional move, rotate, and scale tools. We do have control vertices, kind of like how we had on our curves. Those, on the other hand, do allow us to kind of push and pull and edit our shape of our sphere. All right, so those are the three main components. We can also do the surface point, which is kind of like the curve point, and we can pick an exact surface, a point on our surface of our NURB here. All right. We're not going to be really messing with the components of NURBs too much. This is going to be a very, very broad overview of what NURBs are, because frankly, with the amount of polygons that Maya and real-time engines can handle now, we're not really going to be modeling too much in NURBs. And in fact, if we do model in NURBs, eventually you'll end up converting them to polygonal models anyway. This is a simulation and gaming curriculum, so NURBs don't exist within game engines. Only polygonal models do. But there are a few ways in which we can use NURBs to create some pretty cool shapes very easily. So the next thing we're going to do is talk about our surface tools here. Surface tools are where it's at. This is how we're actually going to make the NURB surfaces that we want to see. All right, and there's three main ones I want to talk about, and we can find those in Surface. I'm going to talk about Loft, Revolve, and Extrude. These are the three main workhorses I've found to be the most useful within what limited use I've seen in my workflows when modeling. So let's talk about Revolve first. Okay, Revolves is a nice way in which we can create cups, urns, candle holders, things of that nature. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into side view again, and I'm going to use curve tools, and I like using the EP curve tool. And I'm basically going to create a silhouette of a nice, crazy looking cup. All right. So I'm going to create the starting point here. And I'm going to try to get it as close to the grid as possible. I'm going to line up the starting and ending point of my curve directly on the 0 axis of my grid. And I'm going to make the base of my cup right here. And then extend it out a little bit more. And then create some points where I can get more of a rigid edge right there. And then just kind of use your imagination at this point. So I'm going to make the base it's looking pretty crazy right now. I'm kind of just getting a broad idea of how I want my cup to look. All right. And I'm going to put the last point right there. That looks kind of dumb. If this is the silhouette of my cup, that'd be the worst cup ever. So why don't we select my control vertices and clean up the shape a little bit. All right. Sometimes using control vertices is unwieldy because you don't know exactly why you're getting these creases here. So don't forget, you can also go to edit point and see the exact points on my cup that are making it behave like it is. All right. So there's the base of my cup right there. Kind of make this more steep there. I'm making a goblet. That's what I'm really making. And I'm just trying to add some ornate shape to it so it looks more kingly. All right. Here we go. And I think that may dip down a little too much. And this is definitely not looking like a cup right now. So what we're running into is I don't have enough edit points or control vertices to define the thick sharpness or the exact sharpness of the lid of my cup. So never fear. We're just going to go and go to edit point, and we're going to select our curve point rather, and we're going to select exactly where I'm going to add some more points. So I'm going to kind of add them right there. And then I'll just go to my curves and insert knot. I think I have it set to 3. Between selection is what I actually want to use when you're selecting 2 different points here. Instead of just putting them all at the selection, which would add 3 there and 3 there, I can actually go between my selections and add more points there. So I'm going to add about, I don't know, maybe 5 more and hit apply. Now I can actually go to my edit points and I can actually start defining a nice shape here. All right. So let me just work here a little bit. And you'll notice that no matter what I do here, I'm getting this weird crinkle at the end of my cup. Well, I need to go in the control vertice and iron that out using my control vertices. And I'm just actually going to snap these control vertices to my grid using X. Then I'm going to come in here and remember, whenever we get our control vertices really nicely lined up with one another. So that's going to be the edge of my cup. I'll bring this one right here and that one right there. See how nice and close they're aligned? And then all these other guys, I'll just delete those control vertices. We added a little bit too many there. And there we go. Great. Okay, you know what? I want to make my cup taller. So you can already see how we're kind of getting that silhouette I was talking about. And what I'm going to do here, I'm going to snap. You can snap the vertices using these as well by pressing V. You can snap the other control vertices. So the question is, how crazy do I want to make my goblet right now? You know what? I want to add one more control point right there. So I'll select this curve point. Go to curves, insert knot right there. But I'm going to do it at selection this time. And I just want to add maybe one more. All right. So that'll give me an extra little vertex to work with. And there we go. I'm actually doing the assignment right now. You're going to be making a goblet or a cup or a stein in your assignment. So maybe paying attention would be a good idea right now. So right now I'm kind of just getting that nice flat base going on. And the last thing I'm going to do is make sure my starting point and my end point are directly snapped to the center of my grid. So now I have like a nice defined silhouette of a goblet. So here's where the Revolve tool comes into play. I'll go to Surfaces, and I'll go to Revolve, and bada bing, bada boom, there's my cup. Oh, looks like we forgot to define the inside of my cup here. So we have to actually go in and add some more points again. So I'll go to curve point, and I'll just add a bunch in between these 2 points right here. Curves, insert knot between my selection. I'm going to add about 5 there. So now I have a lot more to work with. And now I actually need to come in, maybe, yeah, see how I'm having to come in and really just, you're literally making the inside of the cup here. And I'm going to edit points. That might be a little bit easier. Oh, maybe not. See how that edit point messed up my flow right there? Control vertices might be the actual best way to do it. So I'm going to loosely match the shape of my cup here, and I have a few more I can work with. I think I have a few too many to work with, so I'll delete some. And instead of bringing it all the way up there, I'll kind of just terminate it down here. So that was a lesson in Revolve. It'll literally make that silhouette all the way around. So here I am just kind of matching the width of my cup there. And that looks a little bit better. Tweaking things here and there, just to get a nice little shape going on that we want for our cup. It's our cup. All right, so let's try this again. With my starting point and end point correctly snapped, now I'll revolve, and there we go. That's a nice little cup here. All right, so we can also edit the shape of our cup here by, why don't we go ahead and put this Nurbs surface on its own layer and lock it down. Look, I can even go into my curve here and keep editing the shape of my cup. So if you need to fine tune it, you can always do that after you revolve your surface. All right. And I think that might be a little fat, so I'm going to bring it in, or I can make it even fatter. I might bring it in now. Oh, that's looking interesting. I don't like that though. There we go. So that's my crunk cup. I'll take this to the club. That's way too mid 2000s. Bad reference. Either way, I'm going to bedazzle the hell out of this thing, and it'll look pretty cool. But we'll leave the bedazzling to another time. What we're going to do next is we're going to use the extrude tool to give handles to my cup here. So maybe a little handle coming out there, just like a little stein, making a double-handed stein or whatnot. And you know what? The shape isn't really set for and suited to a handle. So why don't I adjust the shape so it is? Maybe make it a little bit fatter there. I can still bring it in there. There we go. And look, I can even use my rotate tool to define my shape even more. All right, I can just get lost in this shape and keep talking about it for days. But next we're going to talk about the extrude tool and how we can extrude a handle out from my cup. Well, you might think, well, hey, that's pretty easy. Just let me bring up my Nurbs and go to my surface patch right here, and I'll just extrude this out and make the handle. I mean, we've used extrude before. Surfaces, extrude, where are you? Up, wrong. That's not the same kind of extrude we're talking about here. All right, so how do we use this extrude tool? Well, the extrude tool consists of two different curves. So I'm going to go to create, and I'm actually going to go to Nurbs primitives, and I'm going to make a square. All right, so this square right here is actually going to be the shape of my handle. So I'm going to bring it up to 90 degrees there, and I'm going to kind of position it, scale it exactly the way I want it. And I'm not going to insert it in. We'll just kind of leave it right outside there because I still want to be able to work with this curve. All right. And you can see there's not too much going on. I'll hide that real quick. There's not too much going on with the square, right? In fact, it's made of multiple different curves that define the square here. All right. So that might be a problem. Maybe I shouldn't use a square. I'm going to rethink that because I need one flush square, one flush curve. You could probably weld and sew those together using some of your curve tools. I think I might see where, I don't know, attach maybe. I'm not going to get into that. I'm just actually going to go in and make a circle now, a circle Nurb. This is one continuous curve. All right, so be careful of that. Extrude, you need to have one seamless curve to define the shape of our curve. And then if you want to have it more square-like, you can always come into a circle that you just made and make it however you want it. I go into components, so I don't keep selecting that other one down there. Ooh, I kind of like the shape of that handle right there. Maybe make it a little bit more. There we go. That looks like a decent handle. You're probably wondering, how do you see a handle in that right now? Well, you're about to see. So that's the shape of, or that's the silhouette or shape of my extruded surface I'm about to make. Now I'm going to make another curve to give it a path that it's going to extrude down through. So I'll go to the side view again, and there I can see. I'm going to actually snap them all on the same, make them flush. See, it was kind of messed up. That's the dangers of using curves in perspective view. See how they were kind of not flush there. So I'll deselect one vertex. Now I can snap it to that bottom one there. All right, so now I'm going to create another curve here. Let's make an EP curve. And I'm going to start as close to the center there as possible. And I'm just going to make a nice curve. Press enter. So this is going to describe the path that we're going to extrude this silhouette of the handle we had described up there. Now I'm just going in and making sure it's a nice shape here. All right, so now we can actually use our extrude tool. I'm going to select the shape of my handle first. Then I'm going to select the path that I want to extrude on. Go to Surfaces, go to Extrude, and that is terrible. It's not adhering to the path we've created at all. So how can we fix this? All right. So what we'll do is we'll go back to my Extrude tool. Remember, I'm having the shape of my handle selected first, and then the path. Very important that you do it in that order. I'll go to Surfaces. Now I'm going to bring up the options for Extrude. Reset those settings. The default settings did something like this. That's not good. What we want to do is we want to make sure that we stay at my path. We want to stay in tube as well. And we also want to follow the path direction. So now if we press apply, now our handle follows our path as much as it can. All right, great. And if you wanted a little bit better shape here, you could always go in and add more. You could always go in and add some more vertices. So you could go to curve point over here and down here. That's a long way. We're going to insert some here. Just so you can give the extrude more components, more geometry to work with. So I'm going to go to Insert Nut. Let's do 5. So now I can actually go in and define my shape a little bit more. Actually, my shape was pretty good. I just need to make sure that when we extrude it, that's a little bit too many right there. I'm getting lost in the geometry right here. There we go. All right, maybe with more control points, our extrude will be a little bit more substantial. Fit the shape a little bit more. So I go to Surfaces, Extrude, make sure I'm at Path. Let's try a component, pivot at component, and do the path direction. Oh, now we got flipped inside out Nurb. So let's undo that. Maybe closest endpoint is what we wanted. Something about adding those extra control vertices has flipped our Nurb inside out. So after we inserted all those extra points, it flipped the direction of my curve here. So we just need to go to Curves and reverse direction. So we'll select, let's try that extrude again. Select my shape, select my path, stay at the path, follow the path direction, hit apply, and there we go. That's more like it. All right, now my shape probably needs a little bit of coaxing. We need to make sure that the shape looks good. So I put my curve, my handle, on its own layer and locked it out. So I can only select control vertices now. Now I can go in and really define the shape. So I'll look at it from perspective to get a better view of it. But there we go. And in fact, now I can actually start putting the end of my handle into my cup here. All because I can edit my curve because we're still technically attached to it. All right, cool. All right, I could spend more time developing the shape of this handle a little bit more. In fact, I need to come in here and push this control vertex in just so. There we go. So you're probably wondering, well, how do I keep the Nurbs from being able to interact with the curves here? What if you're happy with the shape here, right? And in fact, I think I need to make my handle a little bit more substantial anyway. There we go. That's looking a little bit more kingly. That's a little bit too many control points making my curve looks stupid. Just too many points of articulation, making it look all crinkly. All right, great. So now I'll just go to delete all by type, history, and now my curves and my NURB aren't married at the hip anymore. So I can actually go in and delete all my curves, and I can just go in and duplicate that NURB. There we go. I've created a cup with some nice handles, and that's kind of what I want to see from you guys in the assignment, something like that. So let's talk about, I'm going to go ahead and maybe name this layer. Call this our NURB cup or goblet. Hit save, lock it down, and I'm going to make it invisible for a second because the next tool I'm going to talk about is going to be kind of a totally different workflow process. All right, we're going to talk about loft next. All right, so how do we use a loft tool? Well, first I'm going to create some new curves here, and I'm going to create a couch that kind of bends around like an elbow. So I'm going to start out making the silhouette of my couch again, like I did for my cup. So I'll start here at the back of my couch. And I'm just creating the bottom of my couch right now. And I know I'm going to need some nice points of articulation right there. So I'll put 3 control vertices right there. I'm using the CV curve tool. So I'll put one right there, and right there. Now I'm going to make the seat of my couch like so. And then kind of space those out because now I'm getting to the more round part of the couch. Like so. Press enter. And now I got a nice looking couch here. Going to make sure that my points are snapped to the direct center of the grid. Why don't I line up these control vertices to be just right. Oh, looks like we got these out of order. Looks like that one needs to come back. There we go. This one needs to maybe poof out a little bit, and then we'll bring this one. So right now I'm just kind of making sure I'm getting these nice hard edges there. I'll bring that up, kind of have it poof out there, and then define the sharpness of my cushion here. This is kind of defining where it's coming out, and that's the top of my couch. And for all intents and purposes, we have a decent looking silhouette of a couch right here. All right. So you might think, yeah, we're just going to set it up to work like the Revolve tool again. Well, it's not quite going to work like that. Basically, we're going to make the, think of like if you ever seen somebody build a ship or a boat, they create kind of like the skeleton outline of it, and then they go in and add the surface to it. We're going to do the same thing with this couch. So we're going to duplicate this curve a few times. I'm going to do this, and do this. All right. So if we select all of these in order and go to surfaces and do the loft, we get something that's a little messed up. Let's go back in and re-examine our loft parameters. Let's go ahead and reset them. Let's start from reset. I think I had it turned on close. I want to make sure close is off. Let's just do regular reset default settings. And again, our surface is inside out. So we're just going to have to go in and select our curves, reverse the direction, and then we're going to select an order again, 1, 2, 3, 4 surfaces. Now we're going to loft, and there we go. So we can do a lot more interesting things here. So I'm going to put this on its own layer. We'll call this a sofa lay and hide it or lock it down. Since we've lofted it, we can actually change the shape and direction of our couch per curve here. So with that set up there, I'm actually going to undo this. I'm going to actually create a couch that bends around an elbow. So this will be the end of my couch here. This will kind of just be the middle part. And then I want to have it bend, make an elbow couch like so right there. All right. So how should I do this? I know I'm going to need a 45-degree angle because I got to describe the bend of this couch. But where does it go? I'm going to line it up as close as I can to this right here. You know what? Got to think about how it's going to bend. So I think it's going to follow the foot here and bend out like that way. And then I'll do a negative 90 right here. And there we go. So now if we select them in the correct order, go to curve or surfaces and loft. Now we can make a nice looking couch that bends around the elbow there. There we go. Maybe adjust the shape a little bit more. My end part's looking a little ragged. That's okay. Just for the purposes of displaying the loft. Those are the principles of the loft that we're working with right there. All right. So I've made my couch. So I'm going to go to Edit, Delete All by Type History. Now I can delete my, well, I guess I shouldn't delete. I need to remake my layer for my couch. Like that. Let's delete all by type again. History. So let's look at my outliner. There are my curves. There are my Nurbs surfaces. You can see them clean as day right there. So now we have a nice piece of furniture and a nice goblet or whatever kind of, I don't know, metal smithed thing that you want to make, like a vase or a goblet or a candle holder. That's basically what I want to see from you guys in the assignment. All right. So let's talk about that assignment more specifically. So I'm going to want to see a revolved surface like this, and it could be a vase. It can be another goblet like I've made. It can be I don't know, a candlestick holder. And then I want to see an extruded handle that you just kind of shove into it like so. All right. And then I want to see maybe a piece of furniture. You can make another couch. I'm not going to be too specific. That you've used to loft a few curves around. Maybe you can get creative and do some really cool things with those. All right. And another part of the assignment that I want to see that I'm going to talk about right now is converting these Nurbs into polygons. So we're going to have, it's not letting me make any layers right now. That's beautiful. So we're going to have, I want to see a layer with all your Nurbs on them, like so. And then I want to see a layer or another layer with these Nurbs that have been converted into polygons. So let's talk about how we can do that real quickly. And I'll demonstrate on my couch here. So to turn this Nurbs into a polygonal model, we'll just go to Modify and go to Convert. And we'll go to Nurbs to Polys. We just don't want to click on it, though. We want to set some exact settings. And I'm going to talk about this window you see right here. The first thing you're going to do when you convert a Nurb to poly is make sure you're converting to quads. You don't want to make the polygon full of triangles. You don't really like triangles right now. We're worried about topology. So that's one way we can do it. The general way, we can control how many polygons are inserted vertically and how many are inserted horizontally. So if I just hit apply here, we can see this in action. Oh, that's terrible. But maybe I need to add some more to this. There we go. That's the ticket. So I'm going to bring up my outliner again. And we now see I have a Nurbs to poly right there. So that's looking pretty good. Now there's the vertices. There's the faces that we like. And there's the edges that we can mess around with and make this totally look stupid. All right, great. That's one way we can convert. Let's look at another way real quick. If we go to count it's kind of the easiest, most straightforward way. We can say, okay, I want to convert this couch into a polygon, and I only want to use 500 polygons to do it. Do the best you can with it. And boom. There's another way which we can convert. This object right here is made out of 500 faces. All right, or 504. It does the best it can while keeping the topology as clean as possible. All right, that's one way. Standard fit kind of uses ratios to do this, so we can increase the ratio in the height, increase them in length, hit apply, and now we have another conversion right like so. But oh man, we got n-gons going on. Maybe that's not the best one to use. All right, so I'm going to delete that standard fit. I didn't like that one too much. And control points, we'll follow the exact control points on the curves, polygon for polygon. And if you don't have many control points on your curves, you get something like this. But of course, if you go to sub D mode, you're getting that shape back a little bit, but maybe not the best way to do it. So I like using count and general. It just allows you to have the finest control over those. So I've got my polygonal couch right there, and then I'm going to do the same thing over here. Oh, but wait a minute. You mean the settings for my couch didn't work for my goblet? Nope. So I guess we have to do this piece by piece and get the best conversion we can. All right, so I'm going to select my goblet. I'm going to use count on this one and do 1,000 polygons. Hit apply. Oh, we're still missing some detail on the stem there. So maybe I need to up my count to 2,000 polygons. Still not as detailed as I would like it. Why don't I use general again? And this time I'm just going to crank up the number of divisions in the vertical and horizontal U and V. All right. Oh, we're getting closer and closer. It's just not doing it. So let's do 90 and 90. There we go. And if you're finding that maybe you're having too many sections in one way, they don't have to be exact. So maybe if you decrease the number in the U, let's do 60 by 90. Oh, that was the opposite. We need to do 90 by 60. Because we need more detail vertically, but maybe not as many around. So we'll do that. There we go. It's getting closer there. Now we don't have as many polygons around, but we have enough vertically. In fact, I'm going to crank the ones up in the U to like 120. I'm going to match this Nurbs perfectly. All right. And there we go. Perfect. And I'll do the same for the handles here. Oh, wait. We just made a bunch. That's really poly heavy. So maybe we need to dial down these settings for my handle here. I bet we can just get away with 30 by 30 here. Awesome. That looks about right. Do the same for this handle over here. Oh, since we were -1 on the scale here, our normals are flipped. So let's go to surfaces. Or, yeah, we need to go to surfaces or mesh display. And I need to reverse those normals. So where's reverse normals? Right there. And there we go. So now I have a Nurb version of my goblet and handle and couch, and a polygonal version of my couch and crunk cup over here. All right, so that's what I want to see in your assignment. So why don't we call these what they are? Let's call them Nurb goblet, and call this Nurb handle 001. I'll just copy that. So right now I'm just cleaning up my outliner. So when I get into your scene, I want to make sure that I can navigate it properly. Yeah, so now we can call this poly couch and poly goblet, and all the way down. Make sure your outliner's labeled properly. Okay, so that'll do it for this chapter. The most important takeaways here are that curve tools are nice ways where we can extrude or revolve surfaces along our curves. So we can draw them with our tool and then make these nice Nurbs shapes based off of them. And then we can convert them to polygons because we live in the real-time rendering world where polygons, are the only accepted way where we can make surfaces. So just make sure you save as. We can go to desktop. Hopefully you save it in a folder there, and we'll call this like rotor SGD or chapter. What is this? Chapter 8. What chapter is this? Chapter 7. SGD 1114. Make sure you save it as an MA. Use correct naming conventions, and then just upload those to Moodle, and you guys will be done for the week for this assignment. Pretty easy. Just wrapping your head around those Nurbs, and you guys will be good. Thanks.